Hello everyone, welcome to the third episode of the Clicker Game series. Let's begin by improving some of the visuals. So I want to first improve how this text over here looks. So first, I will just go over to Google, and if you search up Quicksand fonts, you can come over to this Google page and add all of the styles from 400 to 700. After you've done that, you can come over here to the bag icon and go over to import, copy this entire thing into style.css at the very top over here, and also copy the CSS rule. Since we want to use this font for our entire app, let's put it inside the body tag, just like that. And after that's done, we can see that the font looks a lot better. Okay, cool. So moving on to the text. So what I want to do is I want to distinguish the gem text from the actual gem amount. So to do that, I can just change this to a paragraph tag and add a break tag over here. Okay, so this just adds it to and puts it to a new line. And now let me target this text individually. So to do that, I'll head over to the styles.css, and inside here, I'll say .gem cost. Font size is 32 pixels. Color is, I'll give it some value of pink. 202, 115, 243. I think that should be pink. Yep. And font weight will be 600. Okay, let's save that, have a look. Okay, that looks pretty good. Actually, I'll make it 700 to make it a little bit more bold. Okay, I think that looks good. Next, I want to give it a property of text shadow. And to do this, we can just say text shadow. The first two values will be the X and Y offset of the shadow. So we can say something like 2 pixels, 2 pixels. The third value is the blur. Let's say 3 pixels. And the fourth value is the color. We can say RGB, and I'll give it a darkish gray color. So nothing too bright. Say 120, 120, and 120. Have a look. Okay, I think that's a bit too bright. I'll say 90, 90, and 90. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Just a little bit of shadow. I also want to apply this text style onto the GPC and GPS as well. So instead of saying .gem cost, I'll actually just create a new utility class, and let's call it .pink text. And if we go to index.html, we can apply to this one because a element can take multiple classes. And also I'll put it down over, where is it? Over here. I'll say class is pink text. Pink text. Okay, I'll have a look. Okay, that looks a lot nicer. Also, I want to remove the cost because I think it's pretty self-explanatory that that value will be the cost. So I'll just change this one, remove this, as well as removing, where is it? This one. Okay, and I will give the paragraph a class name. So this one will be cost text, and I'll copy and paste this class and give it to all these ones. So this one and over here. Okay, just like that. And if I head over to the styles, I can say cost text and say font size is 18 pixels. Okay, that looks pretty good. And I also increase the size of the gem a little bit. So I think that would be this one. I'll change it to 25 pixels instead. Okay, I think that looks a bit better, and I'll make it a bit wider. 20 pixels, 26. Okay, that looks pretty good. And one last thing, I want to increase the padding a little bit because right now I think it's pretty squished. So over here in the upgrade container, we can say something like 13 pixels and 20 pixels. Decrease the border a little bit. Okay. Okay, nice. I think that looks a lot nicer. Okay, now let's move on to the animations. So for the animation, what I want to create is a fade up animation. So basically every time you would click on the gem, a div would be created that says plus and whatever your GPC is, just to make it a bit more responsive and better user experience. So to do that, we can declare the animation in the styles.css. We can say dot fade up animation, fade up, and duration will be 1 second. Now at the bottom, we can actually create the animation itself. So we can say keyframes and the name fade up, and inside here we can declare the frames. So at 0%, which is at the start, I want to give it a transform translate y of 0 and a opacity of 1. So this doesn't actually do anything, it's just declaring the initial value of the animation. And next we can do something like 20% and transform translate y will be -5 pixels. And if we copy this one down like this a few more times, make this one 40%, 60%, 80%, and 100%. We can say this one is -13 pixels, this one can be like 25, and this one can be like 42, and this one will be 65. And don't forget the opacity. So this one can be something like 0.9. This one will be 0.75. This one can be 0.6, 0.55. This one can be 0.3. And this one can be 0. So all this does is that we've declared the frame, so our animation will have 6 frames, and then within 1 second it will animate from the first frame to the last frame. Okay, cool. Now that we've written the animation, we need to actually implement it using JavaScript. So to do that, we need to head inside the increment gem function because that is the function being called when we click onto the gem. Okay, so I will start off by grabbing I will grab the event variable, which is supplied by JavaScript itself, and I'll use that variable to get the x position and the y position of our mouse. Offset x and const y equals event.offset y. So this basically just gets the position of the mouse, so we can actually start the animation wherever we click. Okay, so let's create a new div and call, say, const div equals document.create element and say div. And okay, so we can also give it a value. We can do this by div.enter.html equals plus and a template literal of math.round GPC. So this basically means the same thing as this over here. So plus and then with a plus math.round GPC. But I prefer this way, this method more because it kind of has everything condensed together without you having to use a plus. Okay, so now let's give it some styling. So we can say div.style.css text equals, so I'll use the template literals again, like that, and color of white, a position of absolute, top of y pixels, the one we declared before, a left of x pixels, a font size of 15 pixels, and pointer event set to none, because we don't want to actually be able to click onto the text themselves because it might block us from clicking onto the gem. Okay, so now we need to declare a container that this div right here will be appended to. And for this one, instead of appending it to the image itself, I want to make a new container. So we can just put this one inside here. And for this class, we can say gem image container. Okay, so now we head to the styles, and over here, we can say gem image container is position relative, because remember we're using absolute for the div we're creating. So now over here, we can say, let's get the container first by doing let gem image container equals to document.query selector. Document.query selector, and this will be gem image container. Okay, now that we have that, we can do gem image container dot append child our div. Okay, and we can also add our animation class to this div by doing class list.add and fade up. Okay, let's give that a try. Hopefully it works. Okay, now that we click, nothing happens. Let's try saving all the files. We click, still nothing happens. Let's try to debug this by doing console.log div, and let's just see if this div is getting actually called. So now we click here, uncalled error, cannot read properties of undefined reading offset x. Okay, I know why. The reason for that is because we didn't actually pass in the event inside our HTML. So we do that, and now we give it a try. Okay, still nothing happens. Try saving this one, saving this. Oh, okay, so we forgot to give it put a dot over here. Okay, so now we go back and try. We can see that the animation is working, but it is actually showing on the bottom here. Okay, so it's appearing on the bottom, and the reason for that is we actually used a capital over here. That should be a lowercase. So now that we try, okay, the animation is working, but the div is still remaining in place after the animation has finished. So we want to actually remove it. And to do that, we can use another built-in JavaScript function, which is called the timeout method. So we can say const timeout equals div, and this will fire a callback function. And inside here, we can say set timeout. And what this will do is pretty similar to the set interval, but for this function, it will only execute once. So after the 800 millisecond, whatever code is inside here, it will execute once. And what we want to do is simply div.remove. Okay, so now we can call this function inside our increment gem function. We can say timeout and div. Okay, so now we try. Okay, nice, everything is working. So I know the animation is a little bit stuttery, and if you want to make it more smooth, you can add more frames inside the animation. But I won't be doing that for this video, but feel free to do it yourself. It's not anything hard or anything like that. Okay, so now let's move on to creating a general function that we can use for all the upgrades instead of having to create one function for every single upgrade. And to do that, we can create a new function over here and call it function by upgrade. This function will take in a value, and this value will be called upgrade. So this is what we'll be using to tell JavaScript which upgrade that the user has actually clicked. So basically in the index.html, let's say we're using by clicker. Instead, we will do by upgrade and pass in the name of the item. In this case, it will be clicker. So now we can receive that item and we can execute some code on it. Okay, so before we can actually create the function, we need to create a JavaScript array that will hold objects that will hold all the information regarding our upgrades. And to do that, we can just come over here and say const upgrades equals an array. And inside this array, we will have a lot of different objects. And each object will hold all the information for one upgrade. And inside here, for the key, we can call a name, and the value can be something like clicker. Okay, and basically, if we want to access the first object, all we need to do is come down here and say console.log upgrades and in the square bracket 0. All this does is it gives us the first value of the array. And if we want to grab the second object, we can do 1, the third object 2, etc. In this case, we want to do 0. And if we come over to our app and go to inspect, right click inspect, and head over to the console, if we refresh the page, we can see that we have gotten the first object, which is name clicker. If we want to access this value, however, all we have to do is at the very end of this, we can say .name to get the value. Okay, now we see clicker. Okay, sweet. So that's pretty much how we will be letting JavaScript know which upgrade that the user has chosen. Okay, so now let's add in all the information regarding the clicker. So first, we can say cost equals to, let me just get the value here. Will be this one, so cost will be this. And parsed cost will be this one. We could, okay, and parsed cost will be this one over here. However, since we're working with an object, we cannot actually use parse float on a previous value that we have declared, for example, cost. This is because both of these lines are executed at the same time. So by the time this line is getting read, this line hasn't been read yet, so JavaScript wouldn't know what this variable is. So to fix this issue, we just need to actually declare it manually by getting this entire value and coming here and say parse float dot inner HTML. I know this makes the line a lot longer, but trust me, this will make our further functions very, very easy. Okay, now let's grab the other values. So we can say increase is document.query selector over here. And our next one will be the parsed increase. Parsed increase is same thing as before, parse float, and copy this value inside here, inner HTML. And we've also got the level, which is over here. We can simply grab that. And finally, let's declare the multipliers. So we can say gem multiplier is 1.025 and the cost multiplier is 1.12. So these multipliers are basically just these ones over here. So this one, 1.03, that one is the gem multiplier, and this 1.18 is the cost multiplier. Okay, now that we have our first one, to make the second one, all we have to do is copy this and paste 2 more times, and hover clicker, Control D, a few more times, and change that one to pickaxe. And for this one, all we gotta do is change it to minor. Okay, now we have our entire array set up. We can start working on our function. Okay, and to do this, our logic for this function will be first, we need to find the object. Find whichever object, 1, 2, 3, whichever one has the upgrade that we are looking for. And we're doing this through finding the object through the name. So like I said before, we are passing in the name. So say clicker through this, and we're receiving it through this upgrade variable. So we can declare a new constant called matched upgrade. And for this one, we will use a JavaScript function, which is upgrades.find. And inside here, it will take a variable, which will be upgrade, but we've already used that. So let's just say u, and this will fire a callback function. And inside here, we can make an if statement and say if u.name is equals to the upgrade, then we will return that object. So basically what this function does is that it looks through all the objects. So we can imagine this u to be one object. So it begins by looking through the first object, and then it goes through here. And if the object dot name, which is clicker in this case, is equals to the upgrade, then we will return that entire object, and that object will be stored inside this variable. I hope that makes sense. So let's move on. I will be expanding on it more in the future, so don't worry if it doesn't make sense right now. We will sure be covering that soon. So now that we have the object that the user have chosen, all we have to do now is follow through the exact same logic as we did before for all the other functions. So let's begin by saying if parsed gem is greater or equals to the matched upgrade. So instead of saying parsed clicker cost, we need to say matched upgrade. And this matched upgrade, remember, is the entire object, but we only want the parsed cost inside this object. So to do that, all we need to do is say dot and the name of the key. In this case, it is parsed cost. I just figured that we will be using this variable quite a lot in this function, so I don't want to call it such a long name. So I will abbreviate it just into mu. So over here we can say mu.parseCost, and let's open this one up. So now all we gotta do is follow through this function, which is quite easy. So let's say gem.innerHTML, and wherever it has anything to do with clicker, we change it to mu.whatever that variable is. So parse gem, and over here we've got parse clicker cost, and that will just be mu.parsedCost. Okay, and next we've got clicker level, but that will just be mu.level. .innerHTML plus plus, and next we've got parse clicker increase, so that will just be mu.parsedIncrease equals to parse float. Parsed, not parsed, will be mu.parsedIncrease times by not 1.03 but mu.gem multiplier, and that will be rounded to 2 decimal points. Okay, nice. Now moving on to the next line, clicker increase.inner HTML. So that will just be mu.increase.inner HTML equals mu.parsed_increase. So if you haven't noticed, all I'm doing is wherever it says clicker, I will remove this and basically add an mu at the front. That's all I'm doing. Okay. And next we've got GPC plus equals to mu.parsed_increase. And next we've got mu.clicker, not clicker, parsed cost. Remember, this is for all the functions, so we can't just call it, say something like clicker or pickaxe. It's more general. And times equals to not 1.18, but mu.cost multiplier. And then we will have mu.cost.inner HTML equals to math.round, and here will be mu.parsedCost. Okay, now we save this and hopefully it works. So we come to our code and click this one. We can see that everything is working just like before, but in the index.html, we are using the by upgrade function and not the by clicker. Cool. Now all we have to do is, instead of saying by pickaxe, we just change it to by upgrade and pass it in here, the pickaxe. And over here, you can say by upgrade and pass in minor. Okay, now let's try. We buy this, everything is working, every value is updated. Okay, I've realized that when you buy the upgrade, it always increases GPC. But remember that for these two upgrades, it actually increases the gem per second. So to fix that, it is really simple. We just have to make another if statement. So over here, so we can say if the name of the matched, oh, not this function, sorry, it would be this one. If mu.name is equals to clicker and only clicker, then we will increase the GPC. And otherwise, we will increase the GPS. Increase. Yeah, and now we can just delete this. And if we go back and give it a try, now it's increasing GPS. Nice. Okay, so now we can delete all of these functions. So all of these code. Nice. Get rid of this one. And also we can get rid of all of these. Sweet. So now we have created the general function for all of our upgrades, which makes creating any new upgrades very, very easy. How about we make one right now? So over here, we can copy this entire thing. And instead of minor, let's make our new upgrade, which will be a factory. Okay. And we come back to the index. Oh, let me change this value first. So this one will be 1.14. Actually, I forgot to change any of these values, so I'll quickly do that. So 1.15, 1.035, 1.1. So it'll be 1.0. Okay, 1.04. Sweet. And now we head back to our index.html and copy the entire upgrade div once again. And instead of saying minor, we change this one to say factory. And this one will be factory. And yep, cool. If we save that one, we can see factory is right there. And let's make this one for 750 and say 82 gems per second. Okay, we save that and buy this. Okay, nice. Everything is working. Sweet. Okay, that will be it for the third episode of the Clicker series. I really hope everything in this video made sense. If anything didn't, please feel free to leave it down in the comment section. I'll make sure to reply to all your questions. But in the next episode, we will be adding the save and the load function. All right, that's all. See you in the next episode. See you in the next episode.